Hi, Marcia.
Hi, Kelly.
We are today in the trailer. Marcia's here in Salinas with me, and we're out in the trailer recording. Going to get a quick recording off.
Yes, we're not going to edit this, so we're going to try and be really clear and succinct and not laugh too much or make mistakes.
Or say, Right.
So let's see. Good luck.
Yeah,
okay.
Really. Anyway, no editing today because right after we finish, we are going
to NoCKRs.
Yeah, the NoCKRs retreat. We're super excited, but it's been so long since we had our last episode that was not a travelogue. In fact, it was right after Stitches West, I think. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot to talk about, and we know we'll have a lot more to talk about when we come back from NoCKRs. So let's get started.
Let's get started. Do you want? Should we talk projects?
Yeah, let's talk projects.
Do you want to start with yours?
Sure.
Okay.
So I am still working on the Argyle socks. I have finished one of Robert's lime green and pink and navy Argyle socks, and I started on the second one. I did discover, I posted the fiddle stitch diagram, I guess it's called, onto my project page in Ravelry, and I started knitting them, and I was thinking, this is really strange. This sock is going to be super long. Well, because I had done kind of a mashup of two patterns, I ended up with too many diamonds in the leg of the sock.
Okay.
And the pattern that I should have been looking at had only one big diamond, one row of diamonds around the leg, and then another row of diamonds around the foot. Once I realized that, it's like, oh, good. Okay, my gauge is fine. Everything's fine. Now I know what to do. But if people look at the diagram on my project page, it has 2 rows of diamonds in the leg, and that will make a leg that's about 24 inches long.
Thigh highs.
Yeah. Maybe not quite 24 inches, but quite a bit longer than it needs to be. So I'm going to fix that in my Ravelry page eventually. But I'm working on the second one. If I had known before I started that I wasn't going to get 2 rows of diamonds in the leg of the sock, I would have done my colors differently, because he has 1 full diamond of pink on the leg and 1 full diamond of blue, navy. And then on the foot, he has a full diamond of navy on the top of the foot. And that's it. So
so not as much pink as he wanted.
My plan was to set it up so I had more pink than blue, and I ended up with more blue than navy than pink.
So I'm just going to say that that's why, when we were looking for the pink and green yarn, well, all the yarns at Stitches West to make these socks, when I saw them together, I was like, wow, these are going to be really loud, crazy socks, and they don't seem that loud and crazy to me, and that's probably why there isn't more pink diamonds on it.
Maybe, yeah.
There's less pink in it and more navy and lime green,
Yeah, so I did do pink heels, a pink heel, and I did do a pink toe. So that gave a little more of that fluorescent pink on those socks. But yeah, I learned something. So the diamonds are elongated diamonds, so you do exactly the same purl row as you did knit row, which is different from the socks we did in class, which were he called them the squat diamonds, where each row is a different, you do something different on each row.
Yeah.
So it was easier from the standpoint that the purl row, you don't have to think about your pattern. You just go with it. But anyway, I finished one. I have started another. I got the setup of the colorwork done, and I am going to bring them to the retreat because I think it's actually fairly social knitting. Once you get the pattern established, I think it's pretty social knitting. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It's social knitting.
You have a backup.
For the morning.
Okay.
As opposed to social knitting after a couple of glasses of wine.
And after 10 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
But you have a backup knitting project,
yes.
right? Okay.
So the other backup knitting project that I am bringing is the Summer Fjord. I've resurrected that. That's the linen sweater that I'm making out of sincere sheep linen. I don't believe she carries this anymore, but the color is Quercus, which I think is the Latin term for oak, and I believe it was probably dyed with oak. It's a very pretty gold color, and the pattern, I have 1,200 yards of lace. The pattern for my size should use between 900 and 1,000. I think I'm going to make the sleeves a little longer and the body a little longer. It has just a little cap sleeve, and I think I'll go a little longer than that. And the body has an interesting, I'm almost to the ribbing of the bottom of the sweater, and you do short rows in the back of the ribbing to make the ribbing in the back a little longer. So it kind of, if it was a wool sweater, it would like sort of cup around the bottom of your butt, which I don't think would be actually a good look.
No, kind of a bubble butt thing going on.
Yeah, but in linen, I think it'll be a really nice effect, and I am going to follow the pattern in that respect, I think.
Good.
So, and I'll be bringing that to the retreat. That's probably not the best retreat knitting either, but I want to get it done.
Yeah.
And so I'll be kind of captive. It's not going to be hard. It's just, there's going to probably come a point where it's like, okay, no, not knitting on this right now. So, and then my last project that I wanted to talk about is the weaving that I've been doing. Did you check in the garage? Did you see it?
I have not seen the garage. I just saw the Instagram post about it, so I'll have to go see.
Yeah, you'll have to look.
So is it still on the loom out in the garage?
It's on the loom in the garage.
I'll go take a look.
On the floor loom. It is a twill called Swiss Twill from the Marguerite P. Davison book, and I'm doing there. She has certain threadings. You remember when we wove and we threaded 1, 2, 3, 4, through the first shaft, the second shaft, or the third shaft, the fourth shaft. Well, this one has different. You thread through all different ones. You follow her directions. And then once you've done the threading, there's different treadlings that you can do. Okay. So you remember then when you would have to pull down the different levers. So you do that with your feet on the floor loom, and so there's different treadlings, so you can get different variations, just the same way that you got different patterns from the same threading. I'm doing that. So the warp is a cotton linen blend, red and green, and then the weft I've been using either a different green or the same green, a different red or the same red, and then I've been doing stripes, experimenting with different things, and doing different treadlings. So I think I have 4 dish towels completed. Okay. And the first 2 I had to cut off the loom because there was a mistake, and I had to rethread a little bit. It was not a bad mistake, thank God. I was able to fix it pretty easily, and then I tied it all back on, and then since then, I think I'm actually on towel number 5. So I think I have one more. Okay. I think I have a warp long enough for 6 dish towels. Okay.
So check it out afterwards. Yeah, they looked really pretty on Instagram.
They're turning out really nice. I'm very happy with them. I love taking a threading pattern from this book and then trying all the different variations. I don't know. I think dish towels are like the perfect, kind of like a swatch. Yeah. They're like the perfect sampler that then you get to use. Yeah. So cool. So yeah, that's my project. I am working on the bobble sheep pillow, but I don't think I've touched it in the last week. So it's sort of sitting in my nest on the couch.
I saw your nest on the couch, by the way.
You probably had a conversation with Robert.
No, I did not. I did not have a conversation with Robert, but I did notice the little nest. I thought, there's been a lot of sitting on this couch for a while.
Yes. The Argyle socks have just sort of been. That's where I sort of camped out with all of my equipment, the bobbins and all that, so all my yarns and everything, and so I haven't cleaned that area up in a while. Yeah. So I should probably do it before we leave today, but not sure that's going to happen.
That's not going to happen, Kelly. It's not going to happen. Anyway, okay. Is that it for projects for you? Yeah. Well, because you finished with your sheep, which is part of our Sheep Thrills contest, I'll start with that. I cast on, I did not bring it with me on this trip, but I cast on for the Sheep Carousel Tea Cozy by Kate Davies.
Oh, that's so cute.
And so I cast that on, and I've done the ribbing and the first couple of, rows of the patterning for the sheep, but I realized I made a mistake, so I have to rip it out a little bit. I have to rip out one row, but I decided it's not really, I didn't have a lot of room in my suitcase for all the projects, so I decided not to bring that. But anyway, so I'm working on that. And then, but this is the big news about my projects. I have exciting news about something that I finished.
Oh, yeah?
My Pismo Beach socks. Now, I can't remember. I posted this on Instagram that I look back on Ravelry when I started those, and I figured out it would have been something like 3 years, 2 months and 7 days or something.
Wow.
I don't remember the exact, but it's over 3 years that I started those socks. And, but I finished them on the plane. I think I finished them on the plane going to Scotland, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Or maybe, actually, no, I take that back. Oh, no, I'm wrong. I finished them laying on bed when I was sick in Scotland. Watching, Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon.
Oh my gosh!
But anyway, they're done. Finally, those socks.
So wow.
Yeah, and I did not bring them on my trip, but I did. I've been wearing them, so that's nice.
Yeah, because you bought that sock blank at a shop that's no longer there in the
Pismo
Beach. The yarn crawl that we went to, where we recorded our like trailer.
Yeah, that was before we had. Wasn't that before we had the podcast?
Yeah. We just sat and recorded one day at a restaurant to experiment.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of excited that I finished those. It's like it's a weight off my mind because I've been dragging those socks. In fact, someone on Instagram asked the question, how many miles have they traveled? Oh. And I really have no idea.
Yeah, because you didn't...
But they've been to California a number of times.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And all the way to Scotland.
Yeah. Anyway,
and
so that's done.
To the coast. You took them to the coast a couple of times when you were in... Didn't you go take them when you went to the beach?
Oh, they've gone with me. I take them everywhere. And there's many times I just take them in the car to sit with people and knit. They've been everywhere. Anyway, but they're done and off my back. The albatross is off me now. Anyway, but then I did cast on 2 shawls to take with me to Scotland. And so the first one is, and I think I've talked about both of these before, but the Elinya, Leinya by Amba O'Brien. And I'm using Jorstad Creek Cornwall, which is a fingering weight, in a colorway called Flamingo, so it's kind of a peach color. And I'm contrasting it with Hazelnut's Artisan Sock in a color called Sassafras, which is kind of a kind of chocolatey brown espresso color.
I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, I haven't. Well, I've been working on my other project, but anyway,
the yarn doesn't sound even familiar to me. Okay. Like I don't even know if I ever saw it.
Probably not.
Okay, cool.
So I think I bought the Jorstad Creek the time I went down to Jorstad Creek in Olympia, Washington to do that overdying.
Oh yeah.
And I bought this colorway, and it has it's kind of a peach color, but it has little flecks of brown in it. So I thought it'd be nice pairing it with the brown. Mm-hmm. So I worked on that quite a bit on the trip because it's just simple garter stitch and just 2 rows of each color.
Nice.
And then the shawl gets progressively bigger and bigger, and then there's a picot bind off. But anyway, so I'm working on that.
Fun.
And then I also started another shawl called Simple Shawl by Jane Hunter, and I'm using the Michaels CWD in the colorway, it's a sock weight, in the color called San Francisco Fog. And that's the yarn that I bought a year ago after Stitches West when I went into San Francisco. So I took both of those with me to Scotland, and I worked on both of them quite a bit. Mostly the Elenia I worked on most of the time. But anyway, and then when I got home, I cast on for a cardigan called Little Wave by Gudrun Johnston, and I'm using, Kelly, the Neighborhood Fiber Company yarn, the Studio Worsted that I bought at Stitches.
Okay, you didn't let any moss grow on that.
Well, it was hard because there's so many things I kind of want to cast on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I started that, and the color is called Holland's Market, so it's kind of a...
It's pretty.
Blue, I don't know, their yarns are so interesting because they're not just a solid color. They have like color variations.
Yeah, a lot of depth, yeah.
So I've done the ribbing, and I've done maybe 3 inches of the body, maybe, I think. And I did most of that last night when I was sitting here because I cast on at home, but I didn't start the patterning until I got to your house yesterday afternoon. So that's been kind of fun working on that. I have to say about that pattern, it was sort of interesting. When you cast on for the ribbing, you alternate every other stitch. One stitch is the German twisted cast on, and then you do a long tail cast on, German twisted cast on, long tail cast on. And I cast on, and I was 6 inches short of what I needed because, with the long tail cast on or the German twisted cast on, you have to leave enough yarn.
Right.
And so I had my friends Jane and Kelleen came over for tea the day before I left to come down to California, and they said just use 2 balls of yarn. Cast on with 2 balls, which I didn't even think about that. That's a brilliant idea. And then and I said, well, part of the problem I was having too is I couldn't remember. This is how bad my memory is. I could not remember the last stitch. Was that a German twisted cast on or a long tail cast on? And so and finally Jane said, it doesn't matter, just cast on. It probably doesn't really matter in the grand scheme because I kept thinking there's got to be a reason why she's asking you to do this. And Jane felt that now I don't remember which one. I think it was the German twisted cast on. She felt probably looked better with a purl stitch.
Oh.
I don't know. I just couldn't do it. So I just, So I just cast on. I think I cast on all German twisted cast on.
Yeah. Well, that trick of using 2 balls of yarn to cast on with the long tail cast on, that's one of the 2 things that made that swirl sweater book worth the money. Even if I I did use a pattern from it, but even if I had never used a pattern from that book, that is one of the things that made that book worth every penny I paid.
Made that sweater, Kelly, and I probably did use 2 balls of yarn. And did you think I remembered that at all? No. Until I was reminded of it,
And that was before we were podcasting, so that would have been like 4 years ago.
Yeah. So I'm sure I knew that technique, but I just completely blanked on it and I didn't do it. So anyway, but it's all cast on and I've been working on it.
It looks really nice.
Yeah, I think, and what's nice too about the pattern is it's easy to memorize the pattern. Well, let me say, not memorize the whole pattern repeat. It's 6 stitches is one repeat. And then the pattern, one complete section of the pattern is 12 rows. Mm-hmm. I can't remember, but only 6 stitches. I can remember that all the way across the row.
Yeah,
so it's a lot easier than the other sweater I made, the Recoleta with the same yarn, but that was like I had to look at each stitch on that chart. So anyway, so that's it for me on projects.
Okay, all right. Well. Let's see, what else did we want to talk about? Oh, I know what I wanted to mention. I think we talked really fast.
Yeah, how many minutes are we?
19 minutes.
Because we said we were going to keep this under an hour.
We're going to have it be a short episode. If any of you are people who listen to our podcasts at, like 1.25 or 1.5 or 1.75, some people even listen at double speed.
Really?
Yeah, you have in the podcast different apps.
Yeah, I know you can change the speed.
You can change the speed. and I have to say, there are some people who I listen to at faster speed, but I think if anyone normally listens to us at faster speed, they're going to be surprised at this episode. I feel like we're talking really fast.
Maybe we are. Yeah,
we're hopped up on anticipation for NoCKRs.
Yeah.
So,
well, but we do have a couple things we want to mention, though. Well, we need to mention that the Sheep Thrills Knit Along is going on.
Yes.
And let's remind people when that ends.
That ends May 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, May 1st.
So when I get home, I have to start working on my
tea cozy.
I have to finish my tea cozy.
Well, and I have to get going on my bobble sheep. I might bring that to the retreat as well. We have room, so
okay.
Maybe I'll bring that.
And then
and the Weave Along is over, but we're not going to draw prizes today for the Winter Weave Along. But I did lock the thread. That actually ended at the end of March, but we haven't had a regular episode since that. There's something you're forgetting, though, Marcia, that wasn't completed when you were at Stitches.
Oh, right. In fact, I have it here with me. My second combo spin.
Yeah.
And now I'm not prepared, Kelly, to mention what the pattern is. I completely forgotten what the pattern is.
That's okay.
Oh, it doesn't matter because I've mentioned it before.
I've mentioned it before. Project pages in this episode. Usually, if you're only listening for the first time, usually we tell all the information.
Yes.
We try very hard, but
yes,
not today.
It's been so long, I completely forgot about that. But yes, at Stitches West, I was working on my second combo spin yarn. And
it's called something like Simple Top Down.
Yeah, I think the reason I can't remember is that it's a very...
it's a...
uninspired... I don't want to offend the designer of the pattern, but it's not like... The name doesn't stand out.
It's very practical. The name is very practical.
And just descriptive of what it is, which is just a top-down V-neck... I do. Isn't it Heidi Kermeyer? I think is the designer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did change a couple things on it. What you're supposed to do is just stockinette all the way and then just bind off so that there's no. The cuff just kind of you know how stockinette kind of rolls. And the same thing with the bottom. And I didn't want that, so I actually did put ribbing in. And then my plan for the V-neck was to do a ribbing collar. But I realized that as I did it, I made the ribbing maybe about an inch. But if you're going to put an inch of ribbing on a collar, the neck you have to allow for it with the neck. But this neck was designed that you just picked up stitches and you knit a few rows of stockinette so that the collar would curl and be more open. Well, it wasn't open enough. So the V-neck, when I put in an inch of, I'm gesturing on my chest, but the V-neck, when I picked up stitches and put an inch of ribbing around the neck, it made the neck so tight.
Oh.
Because if you are going to do that, you need to make the neck more open to allow for that.
Right.
So what I ended up doing was I picked up stitches and I think I did 3 rows of reverse stockinette. So it curled back towards my body as opposed away from my body.
So it looks kind of like a rolled hem. Yeah. I like that look.
Yeah. So I did that. And
the reverse stockinette roll.
Yeah. And this combo spin had more silk in it. And I can't tell you now what the percentage was, but it had significantly... Well, the first combo spin had no silk in it at all. This one had silk in it. And I really like and I think I did a better job spinning it too. I think I plied it a little bit better than the first one. So it's not pilling as much as the first sweater. So I think that's a combination of fiber and I think it's a combination of spinning technique. Because my first one, I do have to give it a haircut periodically.
Yeah.
And this one's not that way. But I finished it just in time. I was working on it at Stitches, and I finished it just in time to take to Scotland with me. And I wore that sweater just about every day. So, and when Kim and I were laughing that when I got home, I said, I cannot wear that sweater for a while. But I like it so much, I brought it with me to California. Okay. So I'm back wearing it. So
nice.
I really like how it turned out. And I did forget to mention that that I have started my third combo spin, And that's the one, Kelly, we bought the fiber together up in, when we went to the spin in, the St. Gustav spin in January. And it has a lot of silk in it. I was surprised. I'll have to figure out the percentage. You'll have to help me with the math to figure out the percentage of silk, because some of the braids I bought had silk in them. And I bought one braid that was just 100% silk.
Yeah.
And I bought another one that was about 80% silk. So
that's going to be nice.
And so it's real. And then the third combo spin, I wanted one that's going to be predominantly one color, and I picked green. So all of the roving had green in it. One had a little, I didn't want any blue. So that there's no blue in it.
And no blue leaning greens either.
Right.
We were careful.
Right. However, as I started undoing the braids, some have gray. And gray sort of translates...
reads blue.
When you spin it, it translates a bit blue. I still think it's gorgeous the way it's turning out. And then there was just a little bit of old... It was called Old Rose. The one skein had greens, like a moss green, and just a little bit of this rose color, which is really nice. Just a little bit of another color, but not too much. And then I had another... one of the rovings that was, I think, 80% silk, was predominantly black, and I only put in half of that. Anyway, it's turning out really nice, and I also, Kelly, I have not talked about this, but I was trying to see if I could spin a finer yarn. So all of my two other combo spins have been worsted weight to Aran weight. And this one, I figured out the wraps per inch, and I think it's DK.
Okay.
So I'm actually getting finer. I didn't, because remember
and all that silk will help too, because that means when you spin with something such a long fiber, it does want to be a finer yarn. So that's good.
Yeah. So I have finished 3 skeins, and I was going to bring it with me and just spin at NoCKRs on your wheel, but it's too much to get into my suitcase, so it stayed home.
All those little bits of fluff that you have to store.
But that sweater was so comfortable. My second one was so comfortable on my trip. I wore it. It was just that right weight, where it's warm, but it's not hot, and very, very comfortable sweater. So,
well, that's really good. Yeah, it's funny. It has been so long since we recorded. I mean, Stitches was February 20-something.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten that you had finished that. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, she needs to talk about that sweater.
So I know the other thing we need to talk about, because I can peek over and I can see your notes. And while we were recording, you wrote down Black Sheep Gathering.
Yes.
So
I have reservations.
Well, and I have booked. Kim and I are going to be taking the train down, so we've got our tickets on the train. I purchased those, I think, the day before I came down here, and we have our motel. And you've got your reservations. You're going to camp at the fairgrounds.
We're bringing the trailer, and it's at the end of June.
It's the last weekend in June. And we're not prepared because we don't have the dates.
Yeah, that's okay.
But it's in Albany, Oregon this year.
Yes, they changed the location, which will be really nice for those of us who are camping, I think. The parking lot where we had the trailer before, we actually had a really nice spot. We came in early, and we got a really nice spot. This was a couple years ago. And we don't have hookups because we're just a tiny little trailer, and it has solar power, but we barely have anything to power in here. But they had these poles with power for all the RVs. My God, it looked like a fire hazard. There were cords snaking everywhere. I mean, extension cord upon extension cord upon extension cord, and I know people had trouble with, it was so hot there. It can be quite warm, and people wanted air conditioning, but there's only a certain number of outlets that have the right number of amps for air conditioning in an RV, and I don't know all the details of that. I just know it looked like a rat's nest.
A fire hazard and a tripping hazard.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's that I think will be much better. And for the people who were staying, well, we were staying and didn't have a shower in our RV. They did have shower facilities, but apparently those facilities are better at the new location. There's 2 hotels that are practically on the grounds.
Which we didn't get into.
Oh, and then there's also an RV park, which I thought that was where my reservations were going to end up. And I was a little disappointed that I wasn't right on the fairgrounds. But then when I went to the website and made my reservation, we're right in the parking lot of right outside the building.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, we'll be real close to where everything's happening. So we are planning to do a Saturday afternoon evening get together like we did 2 years ago, like we did 2 years ago at the trailer. So more details on that when it gets closer, but yeah, I'm excited about the Black Sheep Gathering, have a little meetup, get to meet some listeners. There's quite a few people who have mentioned to me that they're going, so that'll be fun. So if you're going to Black Sheep Gathering, we'd like to see you. Yeah. We'd love to have you join us.
So anything else?
Let's see. I think, 2 things. One, I've noticed we have a lot of new people who have introduced or who have joined the group. I have not had a lot of time to go into the introduction thread recently, but I wanted to welcome all of the new listeners that we have. We're now on Spotify, and I don't know if that's why we have new listeners. If you're here, if you got here from Spotify, welcome. If you got here through somewhere else, welcome. But I always think it's interesting whenever we end up on a new platform. I always wonder if the listeners we get right after that are from that. Who knows? Cause and effect. I don't know. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, and I put up a thread in the Ravelry group because I thought this was such a great idea. So Holokilu, Holly from Seattle, she put up a thread talking about infestation, recovering from infestation. She had an unfortunate series of events with moths or carpet beetles, some kind of insect. And so she put up a thread about how do you recover from it? What do you do? What have other people done? How do they store things? Do they ever feel comfortable letting any of their yarn out of the plastic bins? And so there's a long, very interesting series of posts about what people know about carpet beetles. There's a link. Boston Mama put a link to a post by one of the, I think she's in the Yarniacs group. Her name is Jess, and she's actually an entomologist. And so she put a link to a conversation about that from before. So anyway, if you're interested in what people do and think about when they have a problem with moths or carpet beetles or whatever else eats wool, I thought that was a good thread. But also I thought it might be kind of fun to see if there are any questions that people would like to have us talk about on future episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So I put up a thread, and so if anybody has questions that they think would be an interesting question for Marcia and I to kind of delve into and blather on about.
Yeah, I love that. We may not know anything about it, but we'll blather on about it.
Right. Oh, dear. So yeah, so that's up in the Ravelry discussion group.
Okay. All right. Is that everything?
I think so. And since I'm not going to put the regular intro and outro. So Marcia, tell us where we can find you. Who are you on Ravelry?
Oh, I am in Better in Motion on Ravelry and on Instagram.
And I am 100 Projects, the number 1. 100 Projects on both Ravelry and Instagram. We have a shop and the podcasts at Two Ewes Fiber Adventures.com. Anything else that people need to know? We have a Ravelry group on Ravelry, Two Ewes Fiber Adventures.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so...
Well, I have one last thing.
Okay.
So, just to finish up, because as you know, I went to Scotland and I had the dispatches, but I realized when Jane and Colleen came over, I never finished up with the dispatches. The last dispatch, we were getting ready to go down to London. So I just wanted to finish. I'm not going to go into great detail, but just finish up that we did.
Yes, because you left people hanging.
I left you hanging. What happened to her? She's in the trailer now, but how did she get there? No, just to follow up, we took the train from Edinburgh to London. It's like a 5-hour train ride. It was gorgeous. The scenery goes along the coast and in Scotland, and then goes down sort of the middle of the country before you hit London. Really nice train ride. It was first class because it ended up being less expensive, first class because of the deal they were running. But anyway, we did that, and then we got to London, had a nice afternoon walking around London, and I did post a picture of this on Instagram. We were walking along, and I said, oh my gosh, look, there's Loop. I got all excited because there's a Loop. There's a yarn shop in
Loop of London.
Loop of London. I got all excited. There's a Loop. And then we got up and looked at it, and it was actually a bar called Loop. So we were a little disappointed about that. And then...
I wonder if they've ever had someone come in and say, I'm so disappointed this is a bar.
But either way, I would be happy if it was a yarn shop or a bar. I'm happy. Anyway, well, and thinking of bars, too, because someone made the comment, Robert, when he picked me up at the airport, he said, well, you sure drink a lot. And it did look like we drank a lot, but I have to tell you, after we got sick, we never had a whiskey again after we got sick. So we had our whiskey tastings prior to getting sick, and then after we got sick, we just had a couple of beers. And so it did look like from our Instagram post that we were drinking a lot, but we really didn't have that much.
I have to say, that was something that I was a little surprised about in your dispatches, because I knew that Kim had been using one of the whiskey tours as a sort of a template for some of the places to go, and so when you didn't discuss whiskey again in any of the dispatches, I was like, that's interesting. I thought one of the things they were gonna do was all sorts of whiskey tastings. But that explains it.
So I just couldn't stomach it at all.
Right.
So it was I found that really, and I think I may have talked about this in some of the dispatches, but I found that the beer kind of settled my stomach. So I did have I think the carbonation, the carbohydrates, and I'm assuming there's sort of the good the bacteria the fermenting probably helps your stomach a little bit. Like they tell you to eat yogurt after you've been sick. But anyway, enough of being sick. We get down to London. We had a nice afternoon walking around, going to some parks. We did some shopping, and then we had a nice meal out at Rules, which is supposedly it's the oldest restaurant in London. So we had an interesting meal at Rules. And then got up the next morning, had a nice walk and leisurely trip out to the airport and fantastic flight home. We had talked about this in the other dispatches that we had upgraded to the premium economy, which we don't know what that means, but anyway.
That's an oxymoron.
Yes. So I just wanted to finish up the rest of the trip. And we really did not buy anything at all in London. We were kind of shopped out. It was mostly just walking around and seeing the scenery and just enjoying ourselves. So it was nice. So anyway, but the last thing I want to say is coming here and arriving, because I was reunited with Enzo. And I was so excited to see him. And it was interesting when I got home. My son was quite angry with me. Well, he was also just rubbing it in. He wasn't that angry, but really missing the dog. And I would get texts when I was in London saying, I'm missing Enzo. And then we get together every Saturday night. My brother, Kim, our friend Gary, and Ben, and various kids show up, and everybody's talking about how much they miss Enzo. So I'm here through NoCKRs, and then I'll drive home with Enzo, and I think everyone's going to be thrilled. and he's so much better trained. He was a good dog before I brought him down here, but he's even a better dog, because it's amazing how well he listens, and I have some instructions on things I need to work on with him. We talked about that. So, yeah, overall, I'm
cracking the whip.
Yes. She's mean. No, she's not mean. She's tough. Yeah. And he listens, right?
Yeah, he does listen. He listens really well.
Yeah. So anyway, but I was really excited to see him, and I know when I get home next week that...
I wish I was here to see... I was at work when Marcia arrived, so I didn't get to see what Enzo was like, but I wish I could have seen Enzo when he saw you.
Well, I have to laugh because he was very excited to see me, and I get the smile that he does, where he shows all of his teeth, and he was all wiggly and squirmy, and he was so excited to see me, and we went downstairs and everything, and then went out through the ball, and everything just kind of, and then soon I posted a picture of him on Instagram where he just fell asleep and just crashed with Nash, and then you came home, and... He did the exact same thing. Oh. Like you'd been gone for 6 weeks. And then Aunt Betty came home and he did the exact same thing, like she'd been gone for 6 weeks. So I think he was excited to see me, but now the novelty is worn off. So.
Yeah, I don't think dogs know the difference between 6 weeks and 6 hours.
Yeah, or 6 minutes, because I take the recycling out and I come back in. He acts like I've been gone for 6 weeks. So anyway, I was very happy to see him, and now, but I'm now going to be gone for 4 days.
Right.
So
that'll be interesting to see what he does when we leave, and he's here for the next 4 days.
Because you said he was when I left. He was a bit sort of disoriented,
He was a little nervous, kind of like he wasn't sure of himself. He was kind of insecure. And I mean, that's to be expected.
Yeah.
A big part of his confidence, comes from being with you, and then you weren't here. So I have a feeling that won't happen.
Yeah.
And it's not a new place. He's not being left in a new place. It's a place he's been for the last 6 weeks. So
yeah.
So, but it will be kind of interesting to get a report from Robert when we come back.
Yeah.
And then he'll probably do the exact same greeting to us when we come back.
And then he'll ignore us after a minute.
Right.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it.
I think so.
Should we get ready and go to NoCKRs?
Yes. I'll get this uploaded and we'll hit the road.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.